Hey everybody, welcome back into Occupy Democrats. And Donald Trump likes to pretend he is literally the leader of everything, and that would include Santa Claus when it comes to Christmas time. And in this breaking story, if you'd like to not see any coal get stuffed in your stocking, subscribe to the channel. But he certainly has his bad list and his good list. And while he likes to think that he's Santa Claus, what Donald Trump really is, especially this holiday season, is the Grinch who's stealing Christmas, and he's stealing it from our allies. Check out what he said right here.
Let's turn to Donald Trump because the US president has said Europe is a, quote, decaying group of nations led by, quote, weak people.
And let's understand, this is a guy who's going to tell you what you deserve to have while then also telling you what we're supposed to have. This.
You know, you can give up certain products. You can give up pencils. Because under the China policy, you know, every child can get 37 pencils. They only need one or two. You know, they don't need that many. You always need steel. You don't need $37 for your daughter. 2 or 3 is nice.
Donald Trump was speaking to the website Politico after the publication of the new US national security strategy, which argued that democracy was under threat in Europe and promised that America would cultivate resistance to that trend. Well, in response, Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz has described some of the claims as incomprehensible and said Europe did not need the US to help save its democracies. Well, let's hear a little of what Donald Trump had to say to Politico about immigration and Europe.
I'm friendly with all of them, and I know them very well.
And while it's an oldie but goodie, if you don't remember his lovely wife Melania having a snap breakdown about Christmas, let's add to this breaking story by reminding ourselves of this beautiful moment from her right here.
I'm working like my ass off. I know. That Christmas stuff that, who gives a about Christmas stuff and decoration, but I need to do it, right?
Because in the end, during the holidays in Washington, D.C., there's a lot going on that's celebratory or holiday-oriented, while basically Trump puts spoiled soup in everyone's bowl because he said this about European envoys and allies.
They're not doing a good job. Europe is not doing a good job in many ways.
So in this breaking story, do not miss what's being said around Washington about Donald Trump and the rest of the globe, especially our European allies, because he is destroying them all right here. Breaking news, Trump has stomped out the holiday spirit in European embassies. What's been chilling Europe's Washington-based diplomats more? The seasonally frigid weather or the icy blasts of Trumpian disdain for America's supposed transatlantic allies? Hard to tell. From the new U.S. national security strategy characterized by the European Union's former top diplomat Josep Borrell as, in quotes, a declaration of political war to President Donald Trump's scorn offered in an exclusive interview with Politico, it certainly hasn't been a season of good cheer for Europe's envoys. After attending a handful of Christmas parties at European embassies this week, it was clear the mood was quite dour. It was as if European who's of Whoville have been watching aghast as the Grinch stole Christmas. In quotes, the Western alliance is over. The relationship will never be the same again. An envoy of a mid-sized European nation told Politico magazine he decided discretion was the better part of valor and was granted anonymity to avoid causing an international ruckus, particularly after his political counselor intervened to announce, quote, that's off the record. So too with other European diplomats rubbing shoulders, nibbling on canapes, and drowning their sorrows at soirees along Washington's famed Embassy Row. Why comment on the record about the turbulence Trump has brought to the transatlantic relations? Why court the further trouble? Reticence is understandable considering the Trump administration's gun for diplomats who talk out of turn. Last month, Belgium's defense attaché, a brigadier general no less, had to resign when Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth took offense at his remarks describing Trump's administration as, in quotes, characterized by chaos and unpredictability. Nonetheless, despite the hesitancy to speak out, there was a broad consensus at the Christmas parties I attend that Borrell might be right in urging European leaders to recognize that Trump sees the continent as a foe and to cease, quote, hiding behind a fateful and complacent silence. But you first, Mr. Ambassador. A psychologist might diagnose what Europe's envoys in America are experiencing as psychosocial disorientation, a state of confusion about one's very identity or future triggered by the administration's empathetic break with the post-1945 order that Harry Truman first shaped and that's been nurtured by every successive U.S. president, that is, until Donald J. Trump. There are several stages of transition in which one wants to cope with disorientation, starting with the accepting loss of what's familiar. Those suffering from upheaval should focus on what's small and manageable to anchor themselves, like organizing, say, a Christmas Christmas party, and then shift from trying to resist change and slowly learn to adapt. Recovery in highly transformative times requires readiness to embrace uncertainty. I am no professional psychologist, but as Trump turns the world upside down, it isn't hard to discern how most normally unflappable diplomats and attachés are caught in the early transitional stages. In quotes, it will all go back to normal in 2 years' time when there's a new president, a deputy head of mission from a southeastern European country confidently confided to me. Another whispered that Trump has a point when he describes Europe as decaying, noting that he is in a way echoing the criticism of the bloc by Mario Draghi, the former European Central Bank president, who also warned that the EU faces irrelevance and decline unless it gets its act together and reforms dramatically. In quotes, do something has been Draghi's mantra, but then Draghi has Europe's best interest at heart. Does Trump? In quotes, maybe not, the envoy conceded, but he might be doing us a favor by promoting us to be stronger, more capable allies. But does Trump really want Europe to be stronger? After all, he says the EU was formed to screw America. In quotes, probably not, they mused. Foreign policy moving forward shouldn't be values-based and grounded in traditional political ideology, but guided by what works for America. And what works isn't liberty and promoting democracy, but cozying up to autocrats and refraining from criticizing the authoritarianism of the members of the group, once frequently dubbed the axis of autocracy: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, and rejecting any silly old-fashioned interventionist notions about cajoling countries to, quote, adopt a democratic or other social change that differs widely from their traditions and history. In parentheses, just don't ask why that approach doesn't extend to Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. Others in European diplomatic corps, as they munched on delicate bite-sized appetizers at seasonal gatherings, seem to be holding out hope that Trump and his aides don't really mean what they have been saying consistently since arriving in office. In short, they can still be tempered and moderated. That was the same hope among some to the blasting speech Vice President J.D. Vance delivered at the Munich Security Conference earlier this year, which prompted audible gasps from the auditorium. In his speech, Vance advocated MAGA illiberalism and warned European countries to embrace Trump's nationalist populist ideology or be considered unworthy of defense guarantees and friendship. But not all diplomats in Washington are disoriented, or they've nimbly adapted already. Take the hale and hearty Germans. They not only brave the chill winds, but lean into them. Their Christmas market-themed embassy party was actually held outside, and they fortified guests with mulled wine and steaming bratwurst. In quotes, it would be cheating to hold it inside, the German ambassador Jens Hansfeld told shivering attendees. His defense attaché was equally robust when it came to Russia's war in Ukraine. In quotes, we shall do everything to keep Ukraine in the fight, General Gunnar Brugner told me. Trump has also been smiling on gas-rich Qatar, and the Qataris had a big bash at the opposing National Building Museum this week to celebrate their National Day. They were able to fill the cavernous hall with lawmakers, Trump administration bigwigs, and the city's great and good. And no little canopies here. There was endless supply of authentic Qatari food and alcohol and good cheer and no glumness. In quotes, we're happy, beamed a Qatari diplomat. Yes, that's a lot to take in a lot of ways. There's really not much else to say. But the bottom line is, there's an element of this where Trump is going to be sorry he played all of Europe this way, because they are going to get together. And together, they are technically stronger than us, both GDP and also in terms of the global stage. Careful, Donald, what you wish for this Christmas. You guys like and share the video and stay frosty.